This is for the kinetic text assignment for my After Effects class. This is about how to animate text or a line of text or a phrase of text using all of the animators for each of the words that you see on screen within one line. Instead of splitting off all the words into separate layers, you can see by this finished comp that I have one layer. I'm going to open up the layer and we're going to open up the text right here, and I'm going to get, I made my screen bigger here, but I'm going to highlight these. This used to be called Animator 1, this was Animator 2, this was Animator 3 and 4 and 5 and so on, but this says to the people of the earth, I come in peace. But I want to show you how I isolated this all in one line of text. But first, let's see how the RAM looks of this. So let me hit the tilde key and make this slightly bigger and hit the RAM button just so you can see what happens. It looks like it's all separate lines or separate layers, but it's not. To the people, there comes to the people of the earth, I come in peace. Now, this is what some people would consider to be the way to animate text. In my opinion, there are many ways to animate text, and in some cases, let me hit the tilde key, in some cases this is not a bad thing to do, this is a pretty good thing to do, but it's what's more important to me is that you learn that there are other options in almost everything you do in After Effects. This is one option to animating text. I want you to see how to take one line of text like I've just done and add separate animators to each of the line of text. So you have to kind of think your way through this. I wanted the word to and the word the to be independent, then people, then of the earth ... would be one other animator, and then I come in peace would be the other. So what I did was, if I go through this, is I brought the word to in here. I'll highlight it and I'll open up the word to. I added a scale and a blur to the word to, and please follow along on this text edit file. This text edit file shows you how to obviously type your phrase, and then there's an upper right menu that is called the Animator menu. And what you have to do, in fact, I should put in parentheses there, whoops, Animator, and it's actually called Animate menu. And then, let me save that. And then we're going to go down and we're going to I'm not going to go back to this, but I would like you to set it up. It's a very easy text edit file. Really, it's only this long. Okay, actually, it's only that long. But I showed you what all my little things were here, so you could open up my file and you could get a feeling of how I animated the text. Before I go too far, I want to tell you that for each word, I set a keyframe. I hit the stopwatch when I did the second keyframe. So in other words, I did the second keyframe first at the normal either blur or scale or opacity or anchor point or position, and I set it in stone. Then I went back in time and did what I wanted to do, which I probably will say that 100 times, but I want to get through this one pretty fast if I can. So I'm not going to go back to this, but please refer to it as I go through it because I have it over here to my right and I can refer to it when I do all my edits. So I'm going to minimize that and go back to here. What I've done is I've taken added to the to word a scale and a blur. To the word, I had to change, and I wanted to rotate the word the. If you can see, the word the rotates on, in this case, on the y-axis, and I wanted it to rotate that way. Okay, so I actually put and had to relocate the anchor point for the word the so it didn't rotate in a funny way. I'm going to show you how to do that. But after I set the anchor point in position, I then gave it a scale, a Y rotation keyframe, and an opacity. So not only does it opacity in from this point, but it rotates all the way to the where it's supposed to be position. Then in the word people, I added what is called a character offset. Now what that does is it just makes each character have an offset in the alphabet, so when it gets done typing, it actually says the word you want. Of course, I set that first, and then I went back in time and changed my offset number. Then we went to of the earth, and of the earth I had set a tracking type, and I had it track from the right hand side of the screen, see, the right hand side of the screen, to where it's supposed to be. Then I did the word I come in peace. Now, the words I come in peace. In that, I also did a tracking, but I had it come from, watch this, I had it come from the left side of the screen. Watch it come in from the left side of the screen right there in a X position blur. Then it goes off the right hand side of the screen. I'm circling it right there. And then it just shoots from the right hand side of the screen back in position. So I kind of had it do like a rubber band effect. Okay, now let's go to the beginning comp where I don't have any edit. And let's now use my edits. If you see the word to, we're going to set a scale and a blur to the word to. So I want to isolate the word to out of this whole thing. What I have to do is click on the word like this. I'm going to get it as big as I can on the screen, right about there. Then I'm going to go into the animate word right there on the word text, go to animate, and I'm going to add the very first one, which is scale. So I'm going to go up to scale. Now, as soon as I put scale in there, it doesn't know. As soon as I add this, it doesn't know if I want to do it by word or by text or by character. So I have to go in, I think I've told you this already up in one of the steps, I have to go into more options and tell it not to be by character, but I'm going to choose to have this be by word. So I'm going to close the more options setting so that I'm actually asking it to zero in on the words. Now, when I do that, I can click on the animator itself. As soon as I click away from the animator, I want to get close to this and move this over. Watch this marker appear right over here somewhere when I click on the word animator. There is the marker I'm referring to. I'll get slightly closer to it so you can see it right there. When you click on the animator, then After Effects knows that you want to isolate out one of the words. But I'm going to click on the word animator down here in the timeline and hit the return key and type the word to. Now I know that that's for my word to. Now that I'm on that word to, I'm going to move this marker and I'm going to isolate it all the way up just to the word to. So if I get close to that, you can see how I've now zeroed in on the word to of the whole phrase. So now I'm going to go back in time. Let me save the file and let's now concentrate on the word to. So what did I want to do? I told you that I set the second one first. So at 210, I'm going to set my scale to 100. So I'm going to type 210, which is 2 seconds, 10 frames. And I'm going to add the scale right there of 100%. Now I'm going to go back to 110 and I'm going to make it 925. So I figured out that in 1 second I wanted the word to scale on the screen. So I'm going to go to 110 and I'm going to now put this up at 925. So there's my very first one. Now you don't have to watch the whole thing once I do this, only watch a couple. But now you can see that I have the word to coming in off the screen. And now I want to blur this word where it is right there. And I actually didn't reset where the anchor point was coming from. So you can tell that my anchor point right there, I'm showing you where it is. It's on the bottom. So naturally it's scaling from the bottom of the letter up. I didn't reset it. I well for the word the. So if you want to reset your anchor points in a little bit, you can do that whatever you want to do to whatever word you want or multiple words. So back to this one. It says to add a blur. So now to add another attribute or a transform or an effect to the word to, go to the add menu and then down here we'll go to property and I'll go down to blur. Now I've added a second animator to the word, to the animate of the word to. Now at that I have set 2 keyframes, at 1 at 790 and then 0 at 120. So I want to go to 120 because that's where I'll go Option Shift J just so you know, and I'll go to 120 and then right there I'm going to hit the stopwatch and I'm going to leave it be at 0. Now let's go back in time, Option Shift J, and let's go to 100 and now that's going to be 790. Just I found out that 790 does a pretty nice blur through a little bit of a trial and error. So now there's the word to all blurred out. So let me hit save. Let's move my little cursor over to here to about here and hit the end key so I can ram this and hit the 0. So now you can see how this is now coming in. Look at how it's starting to blur. I'm not going to do this the whole time, and I should be skipping one on this. This is kind of silly. But there's the word to as it comes in, and it goes to the phrase, to the whole phrase. Okay, fine. Let's hit save, and let's close the animator of to. Now, I said in one of the steps, right below number 7, I said to get to do another word, you just can't click the animate up here. You must click away from the whole line of text. Then I'll close the word to, or my first animator. And I made my screen big. Hopefully you all can see this. But now I'm going to go and I'm going to tell this to be, as I said, I want to move the anchor point for the word the to the center where I'm pointing it right here. Let me put it on the screen. I want to move it here. But first I have to do a couple things. First of all, I have to tell it to be the word the. Okay? So let's go to this, and let's go to the first top one and have it be anchor point. Now, if I take the word animator here, I can now click on and hit the return key and type the word the. So now I know I'm talking about the word the. Now, I'm going to go immediately and add a position. So I'm going to go up to here and I'm going to add a position. So now I'm going to click on the word the. Let's move the first marker. I'll do this as best I can. Let's move it closer and let's add the first marker to the left of the word the. Then let's add the last marker. Let's grab it over here and put it up there. And now I'll move this over. And now we can move it over to isolate the word the. So I had to click away in order to click back and add the second animator. Let me hit Command S to save the file. Now, look when I click the anchor point, how it shows up. Let me do that again. Let me get closer. Look at how the anchor point shows up on the bottom. If I were to rotate this, and I am going to add a rotator and do it wrong at first, I'm going to go to the Add menu for the word the, and I'm going to add rotation. So now, in rotation, look at what I get. I get a rotation of, there should have been an X, Y, and Z rotation. Oh, what did I do there? I didn't actually click that. That should have already, oops. You know what I didn't do, folks? I didn't go back and tell this to be enable per character 3D. I can do it after the fact, and now I should have done that at the beginning. I admit it to you. I even wrote it in my handout guide that before you start, I should have gone in and enabled per character 3D on this, so I did get an X, Y, and Z. My fault, but it's okay. Do that first when you make your line of text, and then you want to choose your first animator. Make sure it says, make sure it says a check mark by enable per character 3D. Fine. Of course, it wouldn't have given me a Y rotation if I hadn't done that. So actually a Z rotation. But now I want you to see on the word the how an X rotation is going to have the word the swing around like this, and that's not how I want that word to actually pivot. I want it to pivot from the very center, or as close to the very center as I can get. So I'm going to Command Z back. To put this X in the right position, I am going to get close to here so you can see how I'm going to move it down along the x-axis, or I'm going to actually move the word down by sliding the manipulator that I'm circling here to put this in the center of the word the, pretty close to the center right there. Now I'm going to use the position and I'm going to move it back up. What I should do is hit Command R, grab a guide and put it at the bottom of the P on T, the P, put the guide at the bottom of the P, so when I move the T up and the H up, it actually rests on that position. So now I'm going to move it back up, and you can see how now I've replaced the position of the word, and the anchor point is now right in the center. So if I did want it to rotate on the x-axis, now it rotates nicely on the x-axis rather than from the bottom. Let me hit Command S to save the file, and Command : to turn off the guide. Now let's get to the actual animation. In this case, I wanted to have a Y rotation here, and I don't think that would have mattered in where the anchor point was, but I still wanted you to see how to replace the anchor point. So let's go in and now do the 3 that I said. I've added anchor point, I've added position, and I've added rotation. I haven't even added a keyframe yet. So now it says on the word the, on scale, let's go to 3. So the whole thing is now Option Shift J to 300, and I can set 3 keyframes. I have to add, eventually I'm going to want to have opacity, and I'm going to want to have scale. So I'm going to add those now. So let's click on this, go to property and add scale. Let's click on that again to property, and let's add opacity. Now I have all 3 of those. Let me make this slightly smaller on the screen so I can see everything here. I'm at 3, so it tells me, let me triple check, scale, Y rotation, and opacity get a stopwatch. Scale, Y rotation, and opacity get a stopwatch. Okay, that was easy to do because the word the is in the right position. Now let's go backward. For scale, I go to 120. So I'm going to hit Option Shift J, and let's go to 120. And now at 120, all I have to do is set the scale to 1000. So it's linked, that's fine, 1000. And now there is my word. Let me go down in size so you can see the word the right there. Now it says for Y rotation at 120, let's set a 3 times rotation. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to click on that button right there, and I'm going to type in 3. Now it's actually twirling 3 times in a clockwise rotation. It should be clockwise anyway because it's not negative. Let's go down to opacity, and then it sets opacity at, of course, 0. So I click 0, and now let me hit Command S to save. So let me triple check. 120, I should be good. No, I'm sorry. 120 are where my edits start. At 3 is where they're not. So now let's move this RAM out a little tiny bit. Hit Command S to save the file again, and 0. And now we should get a RAM. Let's wait for it to do its thing. And it's almost there. I'm sorry this is taking so long. I probably should skip. I'm going to actually stop this, and I'm going to get slightly closer so we can see what's going on here. Now let me move this down so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, now let's hit RAM again, and then we can see what it's doing. So there's your word to, and there's the. Look at how they overlap each other, and they keep on going. Now I'm going to stop this, and you can actually, you know what, maybe I should do, you can stop this movie right now. You're fine. You can just read the rest of the handout guide and continue on. I am going to continue with this movie until I actually get people and of the earth done, because I want you to see the character offset. So let's just do the whole thing one more time. I click, I move this up, I must close the word the and click away from everything. Now nothing is selected. Now I get to go up and I get to animate an opacity and character offset for the word people. So let's click and let's do an opacity first. In opacity, let's move it down like this. I'm going to go to where everything's done, so at least I can get the feel of where I'm supposed to be on the word people. So I'm going to go right to the end. Now I can actually move my markers over, and I can isolate the word people. So I'm going to click on the word animator, hit the return key, and type in people. And now I'll hit the return key, hit Command S to save the file. Now let's just move this right over to the word people on both sides right there. Now I've isolated the word people out, so I won't even set the opacity yet. I'll go right up and I'll do a character offset, which is what actually allows me to go by character through the alphabet. So now I'm going to leave it as left or top and preserve on the alignments. You can see that I can change those if I want. This could be left or top, center, right or bottom, or adjust kerning, which would be neat. You can try anything you want, and I'm going to preserve the case and digits. So the numbers are at 202. So I gotta set the. You always have to set the second ones first. So let's go to 302. And for opacity, let us set the opacity at 100. Then I'm going to go and make sure that at 314, the character offset is 0. So let's click 314. And at 314, I'm triple checking. Yes, I'm at 314. And let's set a character offset at 0. So now let's go to 202, which I can do both of them at 202. And now let's make the opacity be 0 at 2. Well, actually, I'm going to set that second so you can see what's going on. I'm going to go to the character offset, and I said to set my character offset at 25. Now, here's what it does. As it goes through, look at how the character offset is going right through the alphabet, finally to end up on the word people. So now I just want to go back to 202, and I'm going to set the opacity at 0 so you guys could see what was going on. Now when the word the sets in position, look at how it's just about to the right place, and boom. And now if I went in real time, that would have a good feeling. Of course, I would time it to where the person was saying to the people. So that's all dependent on now where I move these keyframes. I didn't record to the people of the earth. I come in peace. But I'll add that to the RAM. It'll be done in a second, hopefully. And as soon as it gets done, this big blur will be fine. And then I'm going to go right in, and I'm going to do of the earth, ... and then I come in peace. Now there it is. See, it feels real right there. It feels real good, and I am good to go. So let me hit Command S to save the file. Let's do it again. Let's close people. Let's click away from everything. Then we go back up to the top right there, and let me just read. Of the earth is just the tracking amount. So let's go click, and let's go to tracking. So I'm going to go now of that. Now let's click on tracking amount, just the word tracking amount. I have to click away to click on the word tracking amount. And now I get to isolate out of the earth. And then I'm going to type of the earth in a second, but I actually want the dots to be with it. So let's go click on Animator 1 of the earth. And I'll go ... Okay, just to have the ... dots in there. And now let's hit Command S to save the file, and then I read my amount. So of the earth is at 319 is 0. So let's go Option Shift J, 319. And at 319, I set a tracking amount of 0. Let's go Option Shift J and go backwards to 121. And let's have this be a 1176. So I go 1176. Now I'll tell you why I chose 1176. In fact, let me Command Z back. I moved it. In fact, I'm going to go here and do it by myself. I moved it until it went off the screen. Now, it took me all that time to get the O of the earth off the screen. So let me go 1176. So it's not this magical number. It's just that's where the word O went off the screen. You follow what I'm saying? So now when it comes in, I wanted of the earth to come in like this, and then I easy eased both of those so that they had a more natural feeling. So I'm right hand clicking, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and now I'll hit Command S to save the file. And if I want to alter their easy ease graph so that I get a better speed adjustment out of the tracking, all I have to do is click the graph editor, and you can see how you can adjust both of these if you want. If you want it to come in slower or faster. If I click right here on the top, I now can pull this out a little bit farther if I want it to go slower at first and then speed up more drastically. And if I want it really to go slow at the end, I can pull this out. So now it falls quicker, but as it gets to the end of the last keyframe, it's going to even go slower. So that might even be too slow. But let me move this down to make that at least viable there. Now let's click the graph editor off, and I should hit Command S to save, and then let's just get a little close to this so we can see the bottom. And now I'll hit the RAM on this. I don't know how fast this will actually work in. It's going relatively slow. As a matter of fact, this is going slower than I want, but actually when blur gets finished, it should go faster. So let's see how I Come in Peace comes in here. Okay, that had a really nice feel at the end. It didn't feel like it smacked it. It felt like it was almost normal almost human movement at the end. Put a brake on a car and you come to a nice stop right there. So let's go like this and hit the space button and space bar, space button, that's me. And let's go to do the last line. Since you're watching, and if you've watched this far, if you want to do the last line with me, we click away. The last line has opacity, tracking amount, and blur, and we have to isolate I come in peace. So I'll get close to I come in peace right there. There it is. And now let's go do new animator. I said opacity first. Let's now add right away tracking amount, and down here on add, let's add blur. So let's go to property and blur. Now let's tell it to be just I come in peace. So let's click one of the animators. Actually, let me rename this, and I'll go I come in peace. And there's my I come in peace. Now let's hit Command S to save the file. Let's click the opacity. Let's get back on this. So now I can move this. Get a little closer so you can see it. Okay, all I have to do is move the very first one, and now I've isolated I come in peace. Let's go like that. Command S to save the file. Let's get I come in peace to come up on the screen. Now, it says at 4:04 we have to change. That's when everything is at stable keyframe. So let's go to 4:04 first. And at 4:04, let's click opacity, tracking amount, and blur. That was quite easy. Now, let's go back to the second one for each one. At 2:10, there's actually one at 3:18 for tracking, because I kind of set a little bit of a tracking one. So I'll go Option-Shift-J, 3:18. And now at that one, I'm going to put the tracking amount at 25. Now, just to explain to you what I wanted I come in peace to come in from the left-hand side of the screen, and then go farther out to the right-hand side, then come back where it should be. So the second number is positive, but in order for it to go off the left-hand side of the screen, I have to do a negative number. So I'm going to hit Command S to save the file, Option-Shift-J. Let's go to the beginning. You can see it's at 210. And at 210, let's set the opacity at 0, but I'll set that last. This one would go to a -64, so now it shoots out to the other side of the screen, okay? Farther out that way. I don't know why it's not going out all the way. I might have to do something. I'm going to add the blur, and I'm going to unlink the blur because I only want to blur out the X coordinate so it looks like it has a directional blur. And on this one, I had it set at 320. So I didn't want the Y coordinate to set out. Now I have this perfect. Now the reason why I left the words right there is because obviously I am going to set at this point an opacity at 0, so you won't even see that it was still, part of it was still hanging off. Let me go backwards. See how part of it is still hanging off the left-hand side of the screen and part of it is on the left-hand side of the screen? Well, if I add a 0 to the opacity, you don't see it. So let me hit Command S to save the file. And now this should be the whole thing. If I hit, I got to move the RAM out a little farther. Fine. Let's hit the tilde key and let's make this slightly bigger. So now I can put this right in the center of the screen. And now let's hit the RAM and let's see what we've got. This will take a couple of seconds. Let me move my little cursor out of the way. The blur takes the longest, and of course I'm only on 15 frames a second here, so this might not look real good, but it'll look fine, kind of. Now there's "To the people of the earth I come in peace." There's how they say it. And look at how nicely that came in from the left-hand side. Look at how it shoots across, and then just look at the "I come in peace." Forget the other things happening. Look at how that has a real nice feel to it. I could add an easy ease to the end of "I come in peace," but I liked how that snapped in position. So there is the movie to show how to animate text. Let me hit the tilde key and hit it again. There is how to animate text using one layer but several words. So use my README file, and again, I'm going to ask the question when I'm done this, and I'm pretending I'm you. Was this the best way to do it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was easier to actually do the words "to" and "the" and "people" by themselves, because I had to do all the anchor point shifting anyway. I'm not sure what was faster. I'm not sure what was more economical. There's no wrong way. There's only unproductive ways usually. So After Effects, you can do it so many different ways. I just want you to understand that there are other possibilities. That's actually something Spock would say.